Welcome. It's so good to be with you on this Wednesday as we get together for a little midweek Bible study and devotional time. And I'm so glad that you've taken the time out to join us to do just that. Or maybe it's not a Wednesday that you're watching this. Maybe it's a Saturday or Thursday or Monday or whenever it is that you're watching this. I'm so glad that you've taken some time out of your week to join us and to sit down and hopefully be encouraged to get into God's Word and study God's Word a little bit more and hopefully learn a little bit about what He desires for us to be and the life that He desires for us to live. And again, I'm so glad that you've taken some time out of your day, whenever it is, to join us to do just that. Complete this sentence for me. I just want you to think for just a moment and complete this sentence. And you can kind of be thinking about this as we go along as we're through our devotional time. But complete this sentence. When I am weak, blank. Fill in that sentence for me. When I am weak, blank. I don't know about you, or how you might complete that sentence, but I do know that most of the time when we feel weak, when we go through periods of weakness in our lives, it's usually not processed as a positive thing. And usually with those feelings of weakness, those seasons of weakness that we may experience, come other feelings of things like inadequacy and failure, sadness, grief, helplessness. The list goes on, and I'm sure you could probably add some words to that list. But maybe it'll encourage you to know that even the Apostle Paul, someone like the Apostle Paul, a man who wrote much of our New Testament, a man who we can look to as kind of a spiritual giant, an incredible example of faith and trust in Jesus Christ. Even Paul had times and seasons in his life of weakness, even extreme weakness. He talks about one such season in particular in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and how he pleaded with the Lord to take away the issue he was dealing with and to resolve his problem. And yet instead of removing or resolving the issue, Jesus says to Paul these words. He says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Paul then goes on to say, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses," which is an incredible thing to say, so that, here's why he can boast, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why for Christ's sake I delight in weaknesses and insults and hardships and persecutions and difficulties. And he closes with these words, "For when I am weak, then I am strong." It is quite rare for us to hear anyone admit a weakness in our day. We don't typically like to do that, much less to delight, as Paul says, in weaknesses, as he does here in this passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. You almost never hear of an athlete admitting a weakness. When a celebrity admits a weakness, it's usually out of, some scandal being shown up or them being found out about something that they were doing behind the scenes. You certainly won't hear about any self-admitted weaknesses in the current political conversations that we have going on. But for Paul, he had reached a level of spiritual maturity in his life where not only could he admit his weaknesses, but he could almost take pride in his weaknesses. He says, "I boast in weaknesses," because those are occasions for God's strength in his life and in our lives as well, for God's strength to truly shine through. And so what's the message? What are we to learn from the Apostle Paul's example here? Well, I think simply and quite profoundly, the message is that God is our strength. He is the true source of our strength. And when we feel weak, God will fill us with his strength. When we have failed, God will give us victory. When we want to quit, God will help us to go on. When we feel down and out, he will renew us with his Spirit. When we feel lost, God will be our way home. He will be our home, in fact. When we wonder if our life has purpose, God will show us our value and our worth in him. When we are weak, God's grace will be sufficient, just as it was for Paul. If this week is anything like last week or the week before or the week before that or the week before that and on and on and on, if it's anything like every other week before it, then something will happen. Something is going to happen to make you, to make me, to make all of us realize that we cannot handle everything by ourselves. We realize that. I think the older I get, the more and more I realize how much is actually out of my control and how much I truly cannot handle by myself. And when you find yourself feeling weak, helpless, powerless, listen closely and carefully, and you'll hear God saying, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Trust that. Lean into that. Believe that truth, that when you are weak, through Him and through His grace and power, you truly are strong. Hope you have a blessed day. God bless.